Hey, loves, it's Dr. Simone Ellis with Beyond the Chair podcast. And I have to tell you guys, like sometimes in the world, the stars align and some of your dreams and aspirations just fire at the right time. And that is what I felt like when I reached out to this amazing gentleman to say, hey, I'm inspired by your story. We share very, very similar interests. Would you happen to be on the podcast? He has no idea that this is a dental-related podcast, but he is such a powerful person that it doesn't matter who he's talking to, he's inspiring. This is Mr. Anthony Trucks. Anthony, thank you so much for being on the show today. I cannot begin to tell you how much of a fan I am of yours. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to come chat. It's always good to talk to somebody who was excited to talk to me, right? That'd be a fun thing. It'd be weird if you didn't. You're like, this guy.
No. You're totally the vibe, and you're totally a moment. So let's talk a little bit about your bio. When I'm reading and finding out about you, you have an amazing story, and I know you've told it many times, but for viewers out here who have no idea who you are, from coming from a foster care kid all the way to the NFL and now to being a world-renowned speaker, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Where did you grow up?
Yeah.
How did you start?
Accidentally. That's how it usually starts, right? You just gotta do things, you follow them. No, I was given away at 3 years old in foster care by my mom, and it was me and my 3 siblings, and so she didn't want us. So I got thrust in this world of foster care. It's pretty heinous at the time. It still has its kind of ups and downs and dark sides to it. But I dealt with like starvation, torture, beatings, weird things. And I was finally adopted after 11 years in a system by a very poor all-white family. And it opened the doors for me to have some more possibility. Not a lot, but I had a little more possibility. Tried this thing called football because I want to hit people and not get in trouble. Like many of us, you usually try something you're excited about and you go, oh my gosh, I suck at this. And so that was kind of the start of the whole journey. And I checked out. I did what most of us do. I made a really good excuse to why I wouldn't continue doing that. And over time, I kind of got to this point where I go, I don't want to feel this way. Because a lot of us have these journeys where we try something, we check out of it, but we know. Like our heart knows, and so we battle that little demon, even if it's subconsciously. And I go, I want to try this again. And something kind of woke me up some moment in high school. I go, I want to be great. So I tried to be great at football.
Don't just brush over that moment, because that moment was a very impactful moment.
It's a unique one.
Can we talk about that moment?
I find that some of the smallest moments are the catalyst of the greatest changes. Somebody one time told me small hinges move big doors. And I go, that's usually how it works. And so I was sitting in this classroom, Mr. Howell's English class. There's 2 girls sitting on a love seat next to me, and they're talking to each other, having no idea I'm even listening to them. And one girl says to the other girl, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care. And now at this point, I've been adopted. However, I still had that thought in my head. So I got to hear out loud the excuse for why I was playing small and how stupid it was. And that was the thing that unsettled me. So I remember going home, and I'm 15 years old. I was just like this skinny little guy who's trying to play sports, and I don't have a place where I feel comfortable. My identity's all over the place, which is the work I do. And so I'm in this moment. I look at myself in the mirror, and I go, Anthony, you're going to be great. And it's probably more like, Anthony, you're going to be great. I'm a little kid, But I had this simple thought, and I actually looked myself in my pupils like a weirdo. If you'd have walked in a room, you'd have been like, bro, what are you doing right now? And it was this moment where I made a commitment to myself. No, I didn't know what to do because I'd never done those things. So I go, well, what does the person who has what I want do? And it was football. So I go, let me watch Jerry Rice and the Niners. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was presented with actions and habits that weren't part of my current identity. And this is what happens for all of us when we're trying to go to the next level and do something great. We're presented with things that aren't normal to us. They feel uncomfortable. They feel out of character, but in a positive way. And so I knew what it was, and I went towards doing it. So that was kind of the thing that pushed me forward. And I'll say it wasn't easy. I think a lot of us go like, I got this dream, and I go after it, all of a sudden, hurrah. Like I played in the NFL eventually, but I started as one of the worst of the team. Like I wasn't great. Because I was adopted until I was 14, I couldn't play sports until I was 14. So my peers are 7 years ahead of me. So all that takes place, and I try football, and I had this window of time where I decided I'm going to do all the things they do, and it starts by being difficult and hard. I'm ridiculed by my teammates. Oh, Trucks, you're skinny. Why are you lifting weights? You got butterfingers. Why are you out there catching footballs? And this happens to all of us in life. There's someone in our life that we're chasing something goes, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's not who you are. And so that kind of conversation was ringing in my head in the first month or two, like it almost caused me to stop. But I go, no, I'm gonna keep doing it because I was given these deposits. And the more you give, the more you want back. It's the investment bias of us humans. So I'm giving and I'm giving and but after a while, I start to get to this point where I go, wait, I'm feeling more confident. I've spent 6-7 months doing this. Like I'm kind of dope now. Not that
Yeah.
I'm bigger or faster, but I had this skill. But here's what it really was. This is the mentality that I believe is the most critical for all of us that are going to be successful in life. I call it a dominator's identity. It's written kind of in our soul. And what it is, it says, I have done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. And this has been the driving force. So when I stepped on the field my second year in high school, when the ball's in the air, it's my football. I don't care if it was thrown to you. If I have the ball, it's my end zone. I don't care if you're in my way. If you have the ball, this is my line. You don't run past me. I had already paid for this. I've done the work. You don't get to beat me in the light. And that turned into me getting a college football scholarship a couple of years later, playing in the NFL. A lot of things happened as well in that whole window of time there between having kids, meet my real dad and high school sweetheart. And then I get the NFL. NFL stands for not for long. So in my third year, tore my shoulder. I came home. My life fell apart because I didn't know who I was without football. Went through a really dark time. 3 years of I'm divorced. I got 3 kids, and I'm not a present father the way I should be. I don't think. My business is up and down. I came home, opened a gym business because my degree's in kinesiology, and I'm an athlete. So novel idea. Athletes doing fitness. Who ever heard of that?
Who thought of that?
Yeah, right. And progressed through. And then after 3 years divorced, my mom unfortunately passed away. My adoptive mom from multiple sclerosis. She had a 17-year battle, and it kind of thrust me into this reality of the reason I'm not a statistic is because of her. Like if you go to any prison in America, 75% of the prison inmates are former foster kids like me.
Yeah, when
So
you
I
mentioned
beat
that
some
in your
crazy
book,
odds.
I was amazed at that. I did not realize that was that correlation. Like, that's wild.
I didn't either until like 4 years ago. And I was like, damn, like this woman did a lot for my life.
Yeah.
So she opened the doors for me to do stuff. And so that was where I had this promise inside of like, I'm gonna find a way to fix my life, Mom. And when I do, I'm gonna give it back to the world in some way. And that's where I accidentally came across this idea of speaking. Because I was doing talking for fitness because I was in that world and I was educated. But telling my personal story, like unpacking all my heart, like that's not something that I'm, raised to do as a former NFL linebacker, a black man in America. Like that's not what we're taught
like,
to do.
none
like,
of these add up to any of this, right?
So
that math is not math.
Exactly. And so I started doing it, and I found that people benefited from it. I had a catharsis in doing it, felt better for releasing it. And it came to be an actual process that I now teach, right? So it's not just my story. It's me going, I don't care who you are. If you're human, you have an identity. My goal is to teach you to optimize that identity for peak performance or to get what you want, because I do not believe you can attain or sustain a goal above your current identity. No matter what it is, if you don't identify with the actions or the habits or mentality behind it, you don't get the thing, right?
Yeah.
You can want all you want, but if you don't do it what Nick does, you don't get what Nick has. And so I went through this process of realizing the way we all got there. I don't care, dentists, right?
Yeah.
We all have moments in time when we were behind the scenes in front of a glowing computer at 3 o'clock in the morning, or, telling your friends I can't make the trip because you're studying for something, or trying to figure the business side of it out, navigating ups and downs with all these things that no one sees. And when you win, no one cheers for you. But that is why you can win in the light, because there's no way you're going to have done all that to have it be for nothing.
Yeah.
And so for me, I teach people how to go through a process to intentionally do that, because the biggest issue is we all only do it when crap hits the fan. So I say, why don't we do it when like on demand?
Yeah.
When I intentionally do it, so I'm not doing it with my back's against the wall. And the beauty about all of it, it'll kind of culminate with the idea with this is I work in identity. I believe all of us, the way we get an identity, the way we have one now is because of the wiring neurologically and psychologically from past experiences.
Yeah.
If a dog bit you as a kid and didn't bite me, if we're both in a room and a dog walks in, your experience may have you go, and freak out. Whereas for me, I go, oh, nice dog. The only difference is our past experience. So your experience wired you to be who you are now. If you want to elevate your identity, we just need a new set of experiences. And as opposed to waiting for them to hopefully happen, we create a very structured and curated rhythm and we'll call it pocket to go step into an experience that intentionally gets you to exit that space, being that person that has what you want most.
Yeah, and I love that because when reading your book, so for all the viewers, he has amazing book that I resonated so much with the Identity Shift and All Shift podcast and YouTube channel. So definitely going to drop all of that information in the bio so you can follow and subscribe to those things. But one of the things that the first story that you started off with talking about was your 14 or 15-year-old self. And I remember being 15 15 and watching Oprah, which is weird because 15-year-olds were not usually watching Oprah. But
Yeah, true.
confidence as a Black woman, as a young girl trying to figure out who she was, and Oprah saying to identify who you are in the mirror, and until you believe it, continue to say it. And those aha moments that you're talking about, whether it's the conversation that you had the 14-year-old girls talking about, whether it was your aha moment in yourself, one of the questions that came to me was, how many times do we have those moments that happen to us that we don't listen to, right? You talk about this computer system in your book as far as the systems, all the things telling you exactly what to do. And one of my questions to you is that for the people who may or may not be in tune with those moments happening, how do you feel like, how do you tell them to actually start paying attention to those things? Because I think you're right, we do have those moments. You were lucky enough at 14 and 15 or 15 years old to be like, I'm going to wake up. And then you had another moment when your gym was not successful. You were like, I need to wake back up, and your trajectory started to change. So for individuals who are having trouble kind of figuring out that like next step, or they're questioning, like they don't know how to really realize those aha moments, what's your advice for them? Like, how do they start tuning into that?
Yeah, well, the good thing is we all have these moments, and I believe we're aware of the moments, but I don't think that we'd like to be aware of them. So we are usually presented in life with moments that give us this reflection of what we're experiencing, what we're doing. And if the reflection is something that sucks, we either do one of two things. One, we dive in and fix it, not the norm. Or we go, I don't want to see this. And I go and I hang out with people, and I hang out with friends, and we go party and we drink and we do drugs, or I'll bury myself in work, right? We find ways to distract ourselves from reality of what we see because I don't want to face it right now.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, when you mentioned those moments in time, for me, it really wasn't anything more than I just kind of woke up to it and I go, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want the experience.
What makes you
and
different?
I take it back to the.
What makes you different in that space? Because I think that 99% of the world, if I'm being honest, don't wake back up.
No, they don't wake back. I think what makes me different is I'm okay sucking at things. So I think football helped me with that. The thing about football works. Football is, I'm pretty good, right? I played at the highest level in the world. But every single day I would go to practice and get chopped up by a coach. You suck at this, you mess this up. Now, it didn't make me feel like I was a less than a great player. I just knew I had opportunity to improve. And so I was okay sucking because the areas that I saw the holes allowed me to find out what to plug. So if I'm a boat and I keep having to have these holes, people are shoving water out all day just to be able to stay afloat. But if I go, let me figure where the holes are at and plug the stinking things, I don't got to worry about working so hard towards this. And so for me, I'm okay starting something ugly, not looking that great. We do identity work, and one of the identities we find is called the defender. The defender has some success. They have this area where like they don't want to take on new opportunity because it might diminish their current view or facade of how great they are. So that new thing, if I do poor at it, it's going to make me feel bad in some other area or make me look worse than I believe I am. And I think that becomes part of the pervasive thing that kind of seeps into people's ego. And so they don't want to be like, I suck at this. And so because of that, they'll ignore it, they'll walk away from it, and it just keeps on getting worse until all of a sudden you can't avoid it, and all things come crashing down. So the only thing's different about me is I just noticed it earlier, so I can work on it before it festers into something crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I think that when I hear your story, you're just special. You're very different, and I connect with that because sometimes it's hard for people who are, some things that are just natural for you, just like, well, I'm okay with sucking at that. But for people who take it really personal, really seriously, like, I can't move forward. I really want us to kind of get into some more of that identity question.
Because I would ask why they do that. Why do you take it so personal? Part of it's a comparison thing, and I think part of it's the dark work that I talk about, because the identity stuff I do, we've actually still the same work we do for identity shifting, but the vehicle's different. We call it dark work now.
Okay.
And the reason is because I believe that the work you do in the dark allows you to shine in the light. And when you've done that dark work, it's an investment. And the investment is not a monetary investment. The investment, when you do this difficult, hard, almost rigorous work, it's a pride and a confidence in something. So that when I step in the world and I do something, you can tell me how much you hate it, and I can still not care and still feel great. Right? And it's not saying that I'm naive. I'm just going, look, you don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
You know how great I am. Think about the best athletes we admire in the world. They step on this field. And like right now in the world of the football right now, Dak Prescott's out there getting all the flack in the world. If you follow football, he's a quarterback for the Cowboys. And the dude just gets the flack. And in my head, I go, no one knows what he did in the dark. He might come out here and tell you got a different story with his play, right? Last year we had a guy named Geno Smith, the quarterback with the Seattle Seahawks, who He was a guy that people are like, oh, he's not the great bro, killed it. He's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now. Now, it's not because all of a sudden on day one he showed up and I'm great, right?
Yeah.
It's because what he did, he said something too. He says, you guys might have counted me out, but I never did. Or so he said some statement that I loved. And it was just this anchor to like, whatever you thought, you were wrong because I knew me.
Yeah.
I knew what I did. And the chip comes on. So when people go into the world and they're typically going, gosh, I don't want the feedback, but I feel bad. I can immediately know the reason you feel that way is because you know in your heart they might be right because you didn't do that dark work.
Wow.
And all you have to do is do that stuff in the background. And it's not an everyday thing. It's not an everyday big thing. I think people think it has to be some big, overwhelming thing.
Yeah.
No. You don't go big. You go really small in a very big way.
Like
It's
Atomic Habits, he talks about that. Like the small things that you do every single day, the little small
Every
details
day.
that no one else sees is what compounds the big stuff that everybody else sees, right?
James Clear. And he
Yeah.
talks about it. The only thing that they don't do in that book, and there's one by BJ Fogg they talk to also, they allude to it but don't unpack it a lot, is the identity, right? So while we talk about the habits and what they can do, there's not a depth, which is where I try with my work to go farther and go, yes, that's 100% dialed in. I love the work they've done. But what they didn't do is go, did you select the right habits for your ideal identity?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So how did you even get into like the conversation about identity? And more so, like, first I want to know for people who don't know what dark work is, what is that?
Yeah.
And then I want you to go into those 6 core values that make up your ideal identity.
Yeah. Well, so for me, dark work, I found it at a campfire. It's randomly in the middle of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. But dark work is, in a sense, it's the work you do in the dark to shine in the light. It's literally it. Work in the dark, win in the light.
So was this like some
bases.
sort of like, because
No,
when I hear
not
dark work,
I'm gonna explain it to you because I go to companies. They go, "Well, this sounds kind of dark," but I'm like, "It's not dark." Because think about all of us want to shine brighter in the courtroom. You want to shine brighter in the boardroom. You want to shine brighter in the field in your work, and it's all predicated on what you did in the dark that nobody saw. But it really is what it is. It's about optimizing your identity for that peak performance to have an identity that can attain and sustain your vision, your company's vision, and it comes with a reality of I must create a dominator's identity with a mentality in defining moments, the ones that matter, that says, I've done too much work in the dark to lose in the light. This is our company's contract. This is my case to win. This is my sale to get. When you have that in the background, it oozes from you properly. You do the right things almost instinctually because you will not lose. I've already done it, right? So we built that. Now, how it came to be is kind of twofold. The first part of it was this was never the original brand. When I was getting in the realm of speaking and telling my story, the message I had was called Trust Your Hustle. It was like Trust Your Hustle, which in of itself is pretty dope, right?
I love it.
I had this, I loved it too. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, right? But what I did is I was in this group of people in Jack's Hole, Wyoming. There's a bunch of great humans. It was in our industry, some of literally the top 1% of us. We're sitting in this campfire, eating cookies, doing stuff, and we're telling our business. And then from there, you get feedback from the group. And in this group, there's probably at least $1 billion of revenue from online coaching, speaking businesses in the group we're sitting in. So big minds, very successful. And I'm telling my story. One of the guys goes, I don't like it. I go, what do you mean, man? This is like 5 years of my life.
You're like, this is fire. Like everybody likes it. Like it's legitimately good.
Right? I was like, I got courses built on this. This is my thing. He goes, well, I'm gonna give you my thoughts. He says, here's what you got to picture. There's a message and a messenger. He says the messenger is the one that can deliver the message with the skill sets, the capabilities to do so. He says you're a messenger, but the message is the piece that has to connect. Because if you are the messenger with the wrong message, you'll never get any impact. Flip it. If you have a great message but the wrong messenger, it falls flat too. It's got to match. He says, why? I listen to you and go, I get the idea. You're the messenger and it's trust or hustle. He says, you're in a room full of people that hustle in a world that talks about hustling all day. He says, that's not valuable to me. And he says, if you want to work with the highest people in the world, you got to have a value to them. He says, what I want to know is how'd you go from being this foster kid and beating the odds of that and then adopted by an all-white family, and then you played sports and you sucked and you got better at sports, and then you from there had a kid at 20 years old in college, met your dad, started as a sophomore, which you shouldn't have in college, and then played the NFL and lost the NFL. And he's like, how did you get to this room? He says, more so, how did you navigate the identities to get to this space with us?
Wow. And
that was a heavy question. What do you mean? He goes, he's like, there's certain identities some people stick with for a lifetime. I'm the foster kid for a lifetime. A woman broke my heart for a lifetime. I'm a young father. I have to do this to hustle for a lifetime. I'm an athlete and it all fell apart. You lose yourself for a lifetime. He says, for some reason, you've navigated, 30 of these things and some people can't get past one.
Right.
That's the value you can bring to me. And so that was where I kind of started realizing there's more to it. At first, it was called the shift method or making shift happen. And that actually, cool brand, cool language, right?
I love
the problem
it.
was
Yep.
nobody woke up and goes, I want to make an identity shift today. Nobody, right? And then the shift method, it's cool, but it takes a lot of explaining. And so what I go is, well, how do I make this tangible and valuable to the world to where people go, I like that. I can connect with that. And when you look at the world of what we do, for me as a speaker, a coach, there's a place where somebody's at, and a picture like a hill. At the top of the hill, this grassy hill, is the place that they want to be. And that's, I call it an identity shift. You've shifted into the identity of the person that's just effortless effort that can attain and sustain the goals you've had. So if it's this industry you're in, it's like this person can build a staff of people and train them properly without stressing out. They're able to send billing out and their customers want to pay. They're able to keep a good flow of attrition of clients coming in and out. They're educating, they're teaching people, they're becoming a name in their industry. There's an identity of someone that does that. Well, how do we get there? Previously, which in the book, it says the shift method. That's pretty much the same core concepts, but we started saying, no one's identifying and looking at that going, I want to know more. But then I started talking about this idea of this work I did in the dark. And one of my team members goes, what's this dark work in the dark? Yeah, it's just dark work. They go, what? I go, dark work. They go, I like that. I go, me too. So we started diving into this comment. I go, does the rest of the world have this? It wasn't, no one in the world had used this language.
Wow.
I hadn't seen it anywhere. And so I trademarked it and started finding out that when I speak to it, I just worked with Amazon 3 weeks ago. I'm back out there in 4 weeks to go some consulting to do what's called a dark work experience with them. But really, it's people connect with the idea of making it sexy and prideful to do that difficult, hard work.
Yeah.
Because I think we're in a world right now where we're embracing and almost incentivizing the weakness of people. Or
Isn't that interesting? Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, we're changing the way that. So let's be honest. There's the fitness world, which is the easiest way to think about it, as opposed to saying, let's get you in shape and be healthy. We go, let's just make it okay to be overweight and out of shape. Let's just make that sexy and acceptable. And I go, that's okay. You can do that if you choose to. But at a mass scale, you're still unhealthy. Physiology hasn't changed because your psychology around physiology changed. And so it's not healthy to have a body that is not capable of moving, running, walking. I've seen videos of women, her kid almost died because she couldn't get off the ground because she was so heavy set. And so it's this thing where I go, our world is doing that. I'm not saying that I'm completely against all of that. I got a bone to pick. But dark work goes back to the sexiness of doing the things that were difficult so you can have that pride. Because here's what I want. I got a 14-year-old son, 14-year-old daughter. They're twins. I got an older son that's 18. I want them to have the deepest sense of confidence and pride you can imagine. So that when I'm gone, they can go and carry my name and do amazing things. I can't give them the pride. I can't give them the confidence. I can tell them however I want. The world should do this. The world's not going to do that. The world rewards hard work, capabilities, skill sets. That comes from what you do in the dark. So for me, what I do is go, I'm going to get these kids to understand what it means to lean in and do things that are almost soul crushing. Because when you exit that and you've accomplished it, there is a welling of pride and confidence that no one could have given to you.
Yeah.
You had to be earned. And so my company goes back and says, I'm going to create that for you. I'm going to show you how to create that welling up of confidence and pride that makes you and your teams more effective, more efficient, more confident, and know you can, as a team, go out and take over the world and shine heavy and bright in the light.
Why is this journey to do the dark work so critical for everyone's success?
Because without it, you don't develop the skills first you need to be successful whatever you're choosing to do. And nowadays, information is so prevalent that anybody gets it. Right before it was colleges that you had to pay a certain fee to get access to the libraries. Then you can get the education you need to be able to be a separator and be different from the rest of the world. Now I can go on my son's YouTube. I can go on his iPad. I can go on his watch nowadays and pull details up. Right? You can educate yourself. So information isn't as paywalled as it used to be. So it's readily available. But information isn't success because information is an action. And the person who is able to put into action the information they have, they get the thing that no one even talks about, which is the experiential information.
Yeah.
You can read a book all day long. In your world, you can read a book. The document says do this. When you're checking tooth number 22, and I don't care. I'm just making things
dental
up.
terms. Come on. What's up with 22?
Hey,
I love it. I love it.
Right? That's all good. But then, they may tell you a certain way to do things. But you go, you know what? From my experience, I've worked with 150, 200,000 people sitting down. I know this not to be 100% true.
Correct.
There's one thing I wish they would add, that little thing it can matriculate into all parts of your life, but no one's
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that. And so for a lot of us, we go, I want the success. I want that. That success comes with a person who has not just the book or the information that's readily available, but the experiential information.
Yeah.
All the things that aren't written down, that's how you get to that level. But unless you do the dark work to, one, develop the skill, and two, have the brazenness to deploy the skill, you don't get the outcome that will give you.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So you talk about in your book some 6 core
Yeah.
values. Can we talk a little bit
Ideal
about
identity,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, identity. And
So
then
there,
it gets to the ideal identity. So for people who are like,
yeah.
well, wait a minute. First of all, I've never even heard of this concept of identity or even how it relates to me. I just go about my day. I start working. I just move on. And now I'm starting to connect with, well, wait a minute. He's talking about identity. How do I show up? How am I as a person? Well, let's talk a little bit and break that out for people who have no idea about that.
Yeah, so if you think about it, we all have actions and habits, and these things make our life. That's just it. I won't refute that. We'll put it that way. Like the things that you actually do are what make your life what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all driven, actions and habits, by an internal, your mind, your subconscious, your conscious, things you do. And I call it just instinctual. It's just your identity is who you are when you're not thinking about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You just do things. And so that creates your life. So I go, well, that's in place, and it's been built to something. When you were born, you weren't who you are now, right?
Right.
So what happened? Well, we went through this process of really essentially experiencing things from teachers, preachers, coaches, leaders, things we went and put out into the world. And that created this outcome of realities for us or beliefs we have. And so it moves us forward and go, this is who I am now. And then what happens, we go, I want to shift or adjust things. And I go, I don't know how to really take care of that or look at it. So I go, I need to have a working model of what identity is. Like, what's the thing I can look at and go, I see it. Now I can manipulate it the way I want to.
Right.
And when I say manipulate, it's not manipulate the negative way. It's to move and adjust for what the actual definition of it might be. And so I go, well, how do I parse it up? And so I found most of us, our identities are rooted in beliefs and thoughts and actions. The beliefs we have about something, the thoughts that take place from that, and the actions I take with the information. And think of it like a Venn diagram. The top of 3 bubbles is going to be your beliefs. The bottom right is going to be your thoughts. The bottom left will be your actions. And these all have the space where in the center of it is your identity. Now, the beliefs are things that someone may have programmed into you that you hadn't experienced and it told you what it was, but there's a thing you believe to be true about life right now. Whatever it is, we'll just call it whatever it is. And then what happens is you have these thoughts that belief actually leads into, in a sense. So the belief I may have about what's possible for money or possible for my career, for my life, that will start to create thoughts that are actively running. Now, there's an interaction between those two because it's a Venn diagram. In between those beliefs and those thoughts is your mindset. It's your mind in real time in action. We all know about mindset. Carol Dweck has a great book called Mindset, talks about the growth and the fixed mindset. But essentially, I noticed and I go, if I have a belief I can do great, but I don't think thought-wise I can do it, my mindset's weak. It'd be like the athlete who goes, I believe I'm the biggest, strongest, fastest out here, but he thinks, gosh, but those other guys are so fast and I'm not capable. Well, now my mindset's, I'm not going to dominate in the football field, right? I'm a business person. I go, I believe I've spent the time to learn this skill set. I just graduated from dental school. I feel amazing. But then I go, but I don't know if I'm ready for this. How do I? Well, my mindset's going to be weak.
Yeah.
But if your thoughts are in alignment, you go, I graduated. Yeah, because I'm dope. And I could do this. All of a sudden your mindset's strong. How are they so successful? What do they do? Well, they just had a better mindset. They believed deeper at what they could do possibly at a higher level. And they had a thought that was in line with that.
How do you think social media impacts mindset?
Well, it depends on what you let give you the keys to drive you crazy, right? There's a lot on there. I don't like to spend a bunch of time on there, like consuming stuff to educate and learn. I have deep conversations with great people who have great experiences that I trust their perspectives. But I think social media can frame up for people 2 things. One, I think it can frame up for you an incorrect reality, so you're gauging against something that's not proper. And I think it removes from us the space of gratitude. So when I see this thing that I think is real, and I'm not saying it never is, but oftentimes it's a halfway truth of what this person has, their life experience, right? I find on the flip side, I start to have this view of myself that starts to be kind of skewed because now I go, well, I'm not that great because I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have that. So my gratefulness is I'm looking up at what I don't have and never at eye level at what I do have. And so that creates within me an energy that moves me forward. And if I don't have good energy to move forward, I stay stagnant.
Gotcha.
And then all of a sudden I go, gosh, that person's life's amazing. And I don't have all this stuff. And then how does that person succeed? It's if you think about it, it's like if I look at that person, they're funky all day, No wonder why your husband or wife left you, or you can't get a girl or a guy to stay with you. No wonder why you can't have success in your business. Because anytime your clients come around, you're in a poo buddy mood because you saw somebody else's amazing dental business and you can't figure it out. So you go, because it all sucks. I don't have this thing. Yeah, but that energy you have is the worst thing. What do you have? Health. You have a fridge full of food. You got money in your account. You got an education. You got clients that come to you that maybe they want to have a great day, but they're hoping maybe you could make them smile that day. Who
Yeah.
knows, right? They're worried about their teeth and you can help. So these little things we don't think about because we lose this gratefulness. And I think social media is a really interesting catalyst to that problem. And so I choose very cleanly what I put in front of my face. And then I actively think about what I'm thinking about.
I love
It may
that.
sound odd, but like I will spend time asking myself questions. Like I'll seriously be off and I'll feel funny. I go, Anthony, why are you off today? Like, what's going on? And I'll tell my wife, like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel wonky. And I'll acknowledge it. It doesn't mean I hate myself. It means something's loose. And so my brain starts to kind of figure out what it is. And I go, you know what it was? I got this weird email. I didn't think it was much, but the email kind of unsettled me. And so because of that, it put me in a different mood. And so I started framing the rest of my day in proper. And so because of that, like I have this weird energy. I go, I just got to go back and reset. And I go, I email, what did it mean? It didn't mean what I thought it meant because never as good, never as bad as you think. I'm like, I'll give the email a different meaning. It means that they're not happy, but I have opportunity to get better.
I
Okay,
love
now let's
that.
reframe my day. So little things become processes that I actively do that most people just don't. They're just a leaf in the wind on the wind of the emotions they have, and they just are floating around like crazy. And what they do is they do this. I hate it. They go, "It's just who I am." No, it's not. It's who you chose to be and who you're fighting to stay in line with. And if you continue to be that way, then we're not gonna be friends. I guess is what it is. And so for me, I don't like to be around people who just go, "You have to accept me as I am. This is how I am." And I go, "It's great, but one, it sucks that you're accepting you like that." And then two, for me, I don't have to accept that. I mean, unless you're my wife or my kids, which they're pretty cool. But like really, I don't have to accept that of you because all of us have the option to choose our attitude of the day. So like there's just different nuances. But yeah, social media plays in funny, weird little ways.
Yeah, and I think for dentists, I don't know if you know this, like we're like ranked really high for suicide, and so one of
Ooh,
the
I didn't know
things
that.
that we're like number one, and which is great, but not. I'm being sarcastic. The reason why I think that is that like you said, we don't reframe a lot of like what we're experiencing through the day, and I'm always a
People
big
don't.
person on like the amount of energy that we absorb. So people hate us on the day to day. They tell you that they hate you
Mm,
every single day, and so dentists really take
it's
that
crazy.
personal, as opposed to
Yeah.
like for me, I'm like, well, I may not win every patient, but that person right there, I made them smile this way. This person right there, I made them get out of pain. And really having to
Yeah.
program your mind, I think that what you're talking about is reframing and actually announcing it too, which I think was powerful. Saying that you were having a bad day or saying that there's something that happened to you where it kind of made you feel out of sequence, and then reevaluating
Mhm.
why that is, as opposed to letting that one thing have the power for the whole entire day.
No, you have to. It sucks. There's that much going on, and I don't know if you got. I don't know of anything someone's doing to help rectify the situation because it's just they're just humans having a different experience than other humans. But if that's the case, two things pop out glaringly to me. One, there's no one supporting that, and two, they don't feel like they can talk to anybody.
Well, I think that
So that
in our
kind of sucks on
profession,
both accounts.
which really hard, and now like that's part of the reason why I started this podcast was is that the work life balance is crazy, right? You don't
Yeah.
think about the amount of time, energy, and effort, and I don't think patients aren't supposed to think about this first. It's us as doctors that are supposed to think about that. But the real reason is that when dentists get so hyper focused on what they're doing and their problem solving, right? There's not a lot of balance on the other side of that, and so you see a lot of people
No.
not taking care of themselves physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
mentally, and
You guys are. It's almost like I'm framing in my head. You guys are kind of like almost like chiropractors, but different because chiropractors is always be positive, right? Whereas you might go, I need to cut your teeth out of your face. You
yeah,
know, we've
it's
had
it's
with
a
that.
it's a mixed bag. And think about it though too, if you're an entrepreneur too in this
That's
space,
that what I'm saying.
also it's like not
Yeah,
only am
because
I
you could
dealing
go.
with the patient that really
Yeah.
doesn't want to be here, and I got to figure this out. I have to deal with the team, and it just is really imbalanced. And so
Mhm.
dentists end up feeling very I
I
think
get it.
very conflicted, and myself included. And it took a long time. My journey was really different, where I had to. My body was shutting down and was like, "Girl, like you gotta, like you cannot keep going at this. You're not even. I wasn't even
Yeah,
40 yet. You know, like you've got to make some big differences." So I think what you're
it makes
talking
sense.
about is really waking up, reframing your conversation, and showing up differently every single day. But then another thing that I love that in your book that talks about that with the identity is how I think you being a football player and getting your shoulder hurt and then having to decide on, hey, if I'm going to go back, I may actually do something that will really impact my family, or my identity is bigger than just this actual one thing.
Yeah.
That's what I think that we struggle a lot with, myself included. I had to really figure out, like, no, Simone, like you are a dentist. That is your profession. But that is not necessarily the only part about your identity. And so for
No.
people who are having issues with really trying to figure out self-discovery, where do you tell them to start?
It was a couple areas. I think what you're talking to is one. I do get you guys' plight because if you think about, let's see, you could be a doctor, but you could be a go working at Kaiser or John Muir.
Yes.
You can go walk somewhere, but you have to be a business.
Yes.
Like so that's an interesting because you're taking on. It's like how personal trainers get certified, but like they can go work for a gym, but very few work for themselves at a business.
Correct.
So you guys are interesting. I didn't even realize that. Like you kind of have to be an entrepreneur as a dentist.
And then think
That's a
about that
whole
when
new
social
dynamic.
media came on, like, so for instance, for me, it's like, not only are you a business owner, but girl, now you got to become a photographer and a model and a influencer. You're like, wait, what? That was not
Oh,
what
yeah.
I signed up for. And
That's hella
HR,
crazy.
and it's wild. So we
Yeah.
take on a lot, and emotionally we take on a lot, and then you go home and you just do this whole thing over again, and it's a vicious cycle. So I think that
Yeah.
now, like for me, this has been a beautiful transition into self-discovery as far as saying, how do we start figuring out who Simone is as a person?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
your identity work really resonated with me because I'm like in this discovery of who are you? Like, where would you tell
Yeah.
people to start?
So the
with
starting
that?
points, it's actually one. It's fairly simple, but not always easy. There's a statement I love. I think a guy named Tim Murphy said it. He says it's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar. And so essentially
wrote
we
that,
have these
yeah.
operational ways we do things. And I don't think that people are presently aware of what their problem is. And the people that are aware don't want to tell you because they don't feel like pick and fight or how your response will be because your ego is going to show up and it's going to fight me. And so what happens is we usually just run around and go, well, I'm doing all these things, working so hard. Why am I not having success? Like, well, because you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. All the right effort, but in the wrong actions. You're not solving the problem. It just keeps coming around. You're maybe handling a symptom, but you're never handling the actual cause. And so for me, I really like to have people spend time talking to the people or having someone that can ask you questions to get honest answers. Because also sometimes we do have the answer. Someone's told us, we know what it is, but I don't want to admit it. It's the whole distraction thing. I don't feel like facing it right now. And the moment you face it and give yourself permission to improve, pull the ego back a little bit, it actually opens some doors of what's possible. But you're going to have to give up your current self to create the new self. And that's a thing that people don't want to let go of. That's a thing where they go, oh, this is who I am. I've always done this. Great. You've always done that. It's who you are. But you're literally telling them you don't like your life. So you're gonna keep that because there's a guy named Gay Hendricks says, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So if you fight for this and tell me this is who I am, cool. You get to keep that life experience until your life ends. But if you want to change something, we can change life experiences. That's what's going to be the best fit for you. But until you do that, give yourself permission, just run the same circle over and over again.
Yeah. So how do you move out from excuses to execution?
You just do it. I mean, it's really it. So what happens is you can make the excuse or the dream bigger. When the excuse is bigger than the dream doesn't get met. Or the dream gets bigger, and then it doesn't matter. Here's an example of an action. Right? If my kids right now were in a situation where like their life was on the line, I could make an excuse of like I can't give my heart because I don't have a heart. But I go, no. My kid needs to live. I've lived a good chunk of years. I'm doing great. If my child needed my heart, let's do it. I'll say my goodbyes. Let's cut it on out, right? Because that for me is there's no excuse because a dream for my child to live is bigger than the excuse of I want to live longer. It's just a matter of framing things. So when people go, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if it's the right time. Like, no. You can make an excuse as I'm busy. My arm hurts. I can't take time off. All the excuses you want. But then that dream's not going to happen. And I tell my kids this verbatim. I say, listen, you have a dream in your head, right? Yeah, Dad. Okay, cool. My son wants to play professional football like me. I care, but I also don't. I did it. I don't have to live vicariously. I'd love to do it. I'm show them all what it takes to get there, but I'm not gonna run your routes for you. I'm not. You got to work for that, bro. I had to.
You're not
You
going to
had
make him get up and what did you say? Do 500 passes just to make sure you didn't drop a ball? Like you're not
Oh,
going
I
to do
don't
that.
make him. He does 200 a day because I told him that's what it takes, and if he
Yes.
doesn't do it, that's on him. But don't be questioning why you can't catch a football. You know, let me tell you, bro. I can't catch the balls for you.
Wow.
So I tell him, I said, here's what you have to do. You have to get into your head what it takes to accomplish your dream, or get the dream out of your head. That's it. There's no gray area. It is black and white. Get into your head, meaning fully comprehend what it takes, buy into it, commit to it, or get the dream out of your head because you're just torturing yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this is like when you think about being on that journey of being the best version of yourself possible, you really, your philosophy is like you either do it or you don't. And if you choose not to do it, then you're a result of your success or non-success, right? I think you said something in the book that I wrote down. It says if you were already the person internally you wanted to be, you would have already had everything you wanted externally. That
Yeah.
because I think the excuses do become big. Sometimes you're like, well, my excuse is like where, okay, I see myself wanting to be very, very close to where you are. I want to know how you got into those rooms that you got into. So I'm like, okay, but Simone, you're a dentist. You don't have time. Or Simone, you're a young black girl. You don't
Yeah.
have time. And
What you
when
do?
you said that, I was like, or you don't know where to go. Like, you're just like, well, I'm going to start. I need to start. You did the waffle and the syrup. For anybody who does not know, check out his YouTube because he has some really, just some great nuggets. And an avid fan of Brendan Burchard, got a chance to meet him at Kajabi, the community conference. And one of the
No,
things
nice.
that you
Yeah.
said at Influencer Pro was, just continually to keep working at it. You made videos every single day to make sure that you were
Every day.
successful. Now, and I thought to myself, like, well, girl, this is why you're not in the rooms where everybody else is, because you're not making a video every single day
You
to
ain't
just see.
doing that
I'm
shit.
not doing that shift.
But you know
I
what
am
it is?
not.
It's not even about the outcome of the things that you do. It's the what they say, real recognized real.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. I am able to be in the rooms I am with the Brendans and the Deans and the Ed Miletts and the Mel Robbins and the Jamie
Jay
Kernumas and
Shetty's
the Jay Shettys, all these damn people, right? And you'll see me in pictures and people look at me and they go, "Who's that guy?" Like literally, like who's he ain't got millions of followers. Like, hey, and I literally have that. And I go, at the end of the day, my business model's built differently.
Yeah.
I don't care to have 17 million followers. It's not a goal of mine. The people I serve at a high level. I make very good income. I have a lot of freedom with my family. But here's the reality. I would never be able to be allowed in the room or to stay in that room if I wasn't a person they knew was doing what needs to be done to be able to share a seat at the table next to them. And that's different for everybody. Like my work is different than Jay's work, than Trent's work, than Lewis's work. It's all different work. But when they see and I tell them what I've done, like my work is of my caliber. It's of the caliber to belong in the room. And so a lot of us are thinking I got to match them, do their stuff, whatever it is. No, you don't. You just got to do your thing. And when people see somebody being great, it's hard to discount it. You can't. When you see somebody, it's like, all right, this person's proven. They know my journey. They know my football. They know the speak. They know what I do.
Yeah.
And so when you want to get in that room, you've already had success, but you have to step into the next tier of success, which is, can you display to the world that you believe in you, that you've done something great, you know you're great, you're trying to give great to the rest of the world. Now it's different for each room. The room that we're in is a different goal for career, right? For your room, it's going to be a different goal. But if you really want to get into those rooms, you have to go out and do things that develop in the areas that you don't feel strong. And you have to do it while looking stupid. So for me, I go, I want to speak. I got a cool story, but message and messenger. The message is good, but if I can't develop the skills as the messenger, I'm of no use. There are a ton of people who have ridiculously amazing stories, things that make me go, oh, wow, like mine feels like incomparable to yours, but they have no skill set to put it into the world. And they think that just having a story is enough to go and put it in the world. And I go, no, you have to do the dark work to develop the skills to make that thing valuable to a company, to an individual, to the world. Because if not, you're a glorified YouTube video.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be something that I had. So I go, I'm going to do a video every single day until I figure it out. So I did 3.65 years every day without missing a single day, a 90-second video called a Nightly 90. The whole purpose was to learn how to be able to find an idea anywhere I was at and be able to talk to that idea extemporaneously, meaning without ums or ahs or pauses, on the fly. So like even right now, you could give me some random idea. I'll give you a 90-second life lesson like I've been thinking about it for the last 2 hours, right? And it's not because I'm special. It's because I went to the dark when no one watched, nobody cared about the videos. I got made fun of. My friends like, bro, what are you posting life story videos about? You're just a football player who does fitness at the gym, right? That was the stuff. But I kept doing it. After, 1,333 days straight doing it, you couldn't deny it was good. There was no way. And it not just shined on the social side, but it shined when I was on stage because I could put together a speech and kill it. And you'd be like, this dude is ridiculous in what he does.
Because you did the work.
And I just did the work. And here's the thing, I wasn't doing it it wasn't like every 6 months, a big stage. No, it was 90 seconds a day.
Yeah.
That was it. It was 90 seconds a day. That was all it was.
How did you get into those rooms? How did you get into the room?
I asked. You just ask. You know what's crazy is most people, they are so afraid of getting rejected that they never ask in the first place, not realizing that so few people ever actually ask because they have the same mental process.
Wow, I love that.
So when it comes down to it, you go, oh, I'm not at their level. Like, I don't want to be embarrassed when I get in that
Yeah.
room. It'll be feel right. So you stay comfortable you want to rise at the top of your current room, but your current room is a room you don't want to be in anymore. So people go, well, how do I get up there? You leave that room and you go and try to enter the next room because so few people do it. Those who are in those upper rooms, when they see it, they go, all right, you're bold enough. I'm going to give you a shot. And then you enter the room. And then when you're in the room, you get out of your head about what you don't know and how great they are compared to you. And you just share what you know, give value where you can. And little by little, you start broadening your perspective. You have deeper conversations, and lo and behold, magic happens, right? Yeah, that's really all the idea is you have to ask, but you have to be the person that's okay asking, knowing that you're going to enter the room at the bottom of the room.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you'll be fine. Now, football helped me. I went from high school being trash to being good in high school. I went to college, little plebe freshman, to being the starter and balling and leading the league in a whole bunch of different things. You go to the NFL, you start at the bottom, right? It's just the nature of what I did. So for me, I got no problem hopping in the room and sucking because I know how to handle it. And when you don't have to play sports to do it. You could do it in your career. You just have to subject yourself to it a couple times. You'll learn the platform and how to navigate that journey. And all of a sudden, I'm not worried about asking to go and hang out with some cool people.
So a person that is like you, a high performer, a high value guy, right? Does it bother you when you're around individuals who are not as inspired or lacking success or just
Yes.
frustrated? How do you
Not
work
lacking
through that?
success.
I
Not
guess that's
lacking
probably
success.
that's probably not the right word. Let me say it this way. Does it bother you when people are not striving for the same level of success that you think that they could actually get?
Nope.
That doesn't bother you.
I don't believe it's smart or wise or safe to want more for someone than they want for themselves. It creates a really sticky precedence for relationships, and then they feel less than. You think that they should be doing more. It's diabolical, and it ruins relationships all the time, friendships, intimate relationships, all the time. So I don't believe that. However, I believe if you come to me and complain about your situation every single day, but I see you doing nothing to actually change it, we're not going to be friends for very long.
Wow.
Just the reality of it. So, and also, just because you're successful does not mean that I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Here's why. I believe you are not the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. I believe you're the average of the expectations of those 5 people. If me, for example, live my life and I go, you know what, I want to make $5 million this next year. Okay, cool. 5 million to go. I got friends that are all making, 2.5. Cool. All right. But I know somebody else who maybe is only making $1 million, 100,000, but their goal is 5 million like me. I'm going to go with that person. You go, well, why? Because they're not even making what the other people are. Yeah, but those people, if I get to that level, they're stuck and stagnant. This person is trying to go to the farther point. It's like if we're all hiking to a mountain, Yosemite's a great place. You can hike Yosemite and go to the very top, which is called Half Dome. There's a spot like below that. If I'm at the very bottom and I go, I want to go to Half Dome, and they go, I just want to go to the midpoint. I'm like, cool, but they're going to go at a pace where they can stop at that. I need someone who's never climbed it but wants to go to the top because we're going to move at a certain level because the expectation's for a higher point.
Yeah.
So for me, I believe the expectations have got to match my expectations, even if you're already ahead of me a little bit. Now, can I learn something? Yes. But if I have to relearn with somebody else, like and reduce, I'd rather just find a group that wants to go to that level so we'll learn together. And so for me, I believe the expectations that are a bigger part of the groups that you need to enter is go, what are they trying to achieve in the long term? Because if their long-term goals don't meet mine, I may have some short-term success, but I'm going to have to redo the process for the long-term goals I have.
Yeah. I think this has been amazing. So I want to make sure that people, especially doctors who are listening to this podcast today, get an opportunity to know, one, where they can connect with you, because I think that what you're talking about, that identity, that dark work that they need to do, and it's so prevalent in our industry. It's actually prevalent probably in a lot of the healthcare spaces.
All human beings.
All human beings in general, right?
Crazy, right?
Where are 3 things that you want to leave us with, 3 things that you feel like they should do, where they can find you, because that's important.
Well, where you can find me is you go to Instagram at Anthony Trucks. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know when this will release, but at one point we'll have a brand new release of a brand called Dark Work that will not be Anthony, but associated with Anthony. I want it to be its own entity, its own breathing, living, thing that people don't have to like me to engage with, but they can engage because they believe in the message. That'll be later on. And then things to leave you with, there's a lot. There's always a lot you can leave people with, right? I will say this. There was a time when I was suicidal. Like my marriage fell apart. I was not the best dad. Business sucked. And the one thing I didn't do was talk to people. And I think after the fact, that's some really deep conversations that had I had them beforehand, would have never got as dark as it did. So where I think, oh, I was going to be a burden to my friends. I don't want to burden them with my sadness and my darkness. I've never had a friend come to me and go, "Ann, I'm having a tough time. Can I talk to you? Can you give me an hour?" And me go, "Oh no, don't burden me with your sadness." No, I'm like, yes, like I felt good because they saw me as a trustworthy
Yeah.
source of a person, right? So give your friends that gift. Go tell them when things are tough, right? It's better for everybody. It's very cathartic, and you actually find out that you're not alone in the whole process. Second thing is to for me, it's you have to accept that you may suck at something. And if you do, it's okay. But if you can give yourself the permission to improve, now you'll improve. So take down the ego. I call ego everyone's greatest obstacle, EGO. And if you have this thing in your way, you'll never give yourself permission to improve in the areas you need to. So you'll keep on fighting this stupid battle that you're paying the dumb tax when you could have just asked somebody and navigated it properly.
Yeah.
The third thing I'll leave you with is set your own scale. Find for me, my scale is like I love being home. I don't want to go a lot of places. I want to do maybe 24 to 30 speeches a year at most. Some people are out there doing 100. It's ridiculous. It's just not my life. I'm not gonna say it's ridiculous. It doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
I want to be home. I want to coach my football teams. I don't need Gucci. I don't need Ferraris. I don't need Bentleys. I don't need airplanes. I need my family. And so that's allowed me to have my own scale. And so while people go, well, you should have 1 million followers. Why is your YouTube not big? And you should be, jet set and doing this and talk to this person going, I go, yeah, but then what do I have to sacrifice that I genuinely love to make that happen? And the sacrifice is my friends, my family, my relationships, and those are vastly more valuable to me. I make good money in the way that I've balanced my life out, but I'm not shooting to be a billionaire. And so because of that, some people may ridicule me, but because I know my scale, I could give a damn. And so I tell people, set your own scale for what your success is and operate in that silo until something shows you within your own, gauge of what's valuable that you should adjust it. And until then, live it, enjoy it, do your own thing.
Anthony, thank you so much for sharing your love, your light to us today because, again, it has been an amazing journey watching you, seeing somebody be so successful, but really hearing the story that is so personable, so honorable, and so vulnerable. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, this is Beyond the Chair, and if this hasn't made you feel like you wanted to share it with someone, shame on you. But really, the reality is that this message can really, really connect with so many people. So thank you guys, and tune in next time. Please like, subscribe to our channel. Thank you guys.